Michelle Brown is my name. I own a cleaning company and I am 29 years old. It may be considered dirty work by some. My family in particular appears to agree, but I am proud of my work. 7 years after I founded Clean Life by myself, it has expanded into a mid-sized firm with 50 employees and yearly revenues of over $3 million. But I was always just the janitor to my family. This especially applied to my brother Kevin. Kevin is 21 years old. He has enrolled in a prestigious private state institution to study medicine. The annual cost of his education is $60,000. Due to our parents' inability to pay, I have been covering all of his student loan-related fees for the past 3 years because I wanted to help Kevin realize his ambition. I've been thinking a lot lately about my early years. I was 8 years old the day I held my newborn brother for the first time in the hospital waiting area. "Michelle, this is your brother Kevin." My mother spoke gently as she led me to hold the infant in my shaking hands. I can still feel the warmth of that small life in my hands. "Please help take good care of Kevin as his big sister, won't you?" My life would be shaped by the sense of duty my father instilled in me from a young age. My mother worked part-time in a grocery store, while my father worked in a small factory in the neighborhood. Despite their lack of cash, they put in a lot of effort to save us siblings from going through difficult times. I've been taking care of Kevin after school since elementary school, helping him with his homework and preparing food. We were close siblings who cared for one another despite our occasional arguments. An incident during the winter of his second grade year ignited Kevin's desire to become a doctor. He had a bad cough and a high temperature all of a sudden. We initially believed it to be a simple cold, but Kevin started having trouble breathing that night. "Michelle, it's hard to breathe." I recall the midnight trip to the emergency department when he was hurried into the examination room with an oxygen mask over his lips and a pallid face. He was admitted to the hospital right away after being diagnosed with acute pneumonia. With our parents unable to take time off work, I, then a high school student, skipped school to care for him. "Don't worry, I'm here with you," I reassured Kevin as he lay crying with an IV drip. We stayed in a 4-person room. Kevin, weak under his oxygen mask, lay by the window. As his fever spiked at night and he tossed in his sleep, I would come after school and sometimes stay overnight to change his ice pillow and wipe his sweat. "This girl really takes good care of her brother," I heard an elderly lady in the same room tell a nurse. 3 days into his hospitalization, Dr. Anderson came for a kindly middle-aged doctor with a gentle smile. "You're doing well. You'll get better soon," he reassured Kevin. Kevin nodded weakly. "The doctor is kind, yet seems so reliable," Kevin murmured. A week into his stay, a little girl in the same room had a seizure at night. Dr. Anderson rushed in and skillfully handled the situation, with Kevin watching intently. "Amazing," he whispered in pure admiration. On the day of his discharge, Kevin thanked Dr. Anderson. "Dr. Anderson, I want to be a doctor like you in the future," he declared. Dr. Anderson smiled kindly. "Well then, you'd have to study hard and remember to always be kind," he advised. "Yes, I'll do my best while learning from my sister," Kevin responded. As we left the hospital, Kevin looked back at the ward. "Michelle, I promise I will become a doctor and help those in need," he said, his eyes shining like never before. That experience was what sparked Kevin's dream of becoming a doctor. Afterward, I started working part-time in cleaning to help with household expenses and contribute even a little toward my own tuition. Initially, I thought it was an embarrassing job. However, I soon realized that cleaning requires invisible effort and definite skills. My first job was at a small local clinic. Early in the morning, I polished the waiting room floor, wiped the windows, and cleaned the toilets. One day, the clinic director told me, "Thanks to you, Miss Brown, our patients can receive their treatments in comfort." Those words profoundly changed my perspective on cleaning. The place looks brand new after you clean it up. "Michelle, A customer once told me a compliment I still cherish to this day. After graduating high school, I joined a major building maintenance company. Cleaning supports people's lives, and I was drawn to this job, believing in its importance. While working on site, I learned the techniques and know-how of cleaning and management. In my second year with the company, I was entrusted with cleaning a large commercial facility, a crucial job overseeing more than 100 staff members. The cleaning work was relentless, starting at 4 a.m. before the store opened and continuing late into the night after it closed. Sometimes, I had to manage both the late night and early morning shifts. Occasionally, I worked long overtime hours to cover for staff who suddenly took leave. Those were incredibly busy days, but the experience became a valuable asset to me. Our cleaning staff included a diverse range of individuals, from elderly workers to housewives, each with their own circumstances. Elderly staff members, despite their excellent cleaning skills, often had to quit because their bodies could no longer keep up. In the break room, I heard part-time housewives with young children struggling to adjust their shifts. It was around this time that I began to think about starting my own business. I wanted to create a better working environment for the staff. I wanted to support people's lives through cleaning. That was my motivation. Michelle, you are really suited for this job. You work diligently and notice even the smallest details, an older colleague once told me. Encouraged by those words, I began studying management. During breaks, I read articles for entrepreneurs, and on weekends, I attended management seminars. Gradually, my dream of starting my own business took on a concrete shape. Meanwhile, Kevin, who had reached middle school, was fiercely pursuing his goal of becoming a doctor. He was always at the top of his class. His desk was perpetually stacked with textbooks and workbooks. However, our family finances were tight, and we couldn't afford to send him to tutoring. Kevin dedicated himself to his studies desperately. He arrived at school earlier than anyone else, and after classes, he stayed behind in the library to study. On weekends, he was at the state library from the moment it opened. Kevin, you're working so hard every day. You'll surely become a wonderful doctor, my mother told him, her words filled with both pride and a tinge of sadness. I was just as desperate. During his high school entrance exams, Kevin wanted to attend a school with a slightly higher academic standard, but we worried about the costs. I didn't want him to give up. Don't worry. I'll support you with all I've got, I told him, buying him reference books with my own salary. I also secretly bought him snacks when he seemed tired. On the eve of the exam, I stayed up late with him, calming his nerves. Michelle, what if things don't go well tomorrow? Don't worry. You've done enough, Kevin. The joy of finding his examination number on the pass list on announcement day is still vivid in my memory. Kevin hugged me, crying. It's all thanks to you, Michelle. Thank you so much. At the age of 25, I resigned and finally decided to start my own company. I had saved $330,000 from my part-time jobs and years of working as an employee. I went around to banks with my business plan, but none took me seriously. The cleaning industry has too low an entry barrier. There's too much competition, they said. Starting a business as a woman is still seen as a risk. These words nearly crushed me, but I did not give up. My first job came through an introduction from an older colleague from my part-time days. It was routine cleaning at an elementary school where her friend worked. The salary was low, but this was the start of my company. Miss Brown, you clean so meticulously. We're grateful to have you here, the vice principal said. That led to my next job, office cleaning for a company owned by the PTA president. I worked alone from early morning until late at night. During the day, I was on site. At night, I handled accounting and sales. There was no time to rest, but every day was fulfilling. One late night, while cleaning an office, a young employee who was working overtime approached me. Miss Brown, it must be tough working so late every day. No, I'm happy to be of help to someone. That conversation led him to introduce me to clean his company's office. Gradually, I began to receive more jobs and became busier. I was able to hire a few employees, and the company was doing well. Then, one day, a fateful call came. Michelle, I got into medical school. Kevin's excited voice came through the phone. His dream had finally come true. Kevin, I'm coming right away. After receiving the call, I couldn't stay put. I rushed to the university during a break at work. The moment we found his name among the accepted students, we hugged and rejoiced together. However, our parents' expressions were complex. Medical school tuition is over $50,000 a year. My mother's voice trembled. We can't afford that. I'll pay for it, I blurted out without thinking. The company was doing well, but sourcing such a significant amount every year was not easy. Michelle, that's too much for you, my father said, concern etched on his face. It's okay. I want to do everything I can for Kevin's dream. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Kevin burst into tears. Michelle, I will definitely repay your kindness. Inspired by his words, I worked even harder. Every day, I went out to secure new contracts, striving to minimize labor costs by working on site myself. Seeing my relentless work, one of my employees approached me. You're pushing yourself too hard. Let us help with what we can. I took his words to heart and began delegating more tasks. Gradually, the company steadily grew, and the number of employees increased. However, in exchange, I drastically cut back on my personal life. I refrained from buying new clothes and worked even on holidays. Yet, whenever I saw Kevin thriving in medical school, all my fatigue seemed to vanish. However, Kevin's acceptance into medical school gradually changed our parents. The first sign of change was at a family memorial service. Our Kevin has been accepted into medical school, my mother proudly told each relative. With every retelling, she received praises like impressive and how commendable. Her face lit up with pride. When an aunt asked, "Is Michelle still in a cleaning business?" my mother's face clouded over slightly, and she answered vaguely, "Well, yes." My father also changed. He began bringing up Kevin at his weekly chess gatherings. My son says he's going to be a neurosurgeon. Your son is really something else, his peers would exclaim. The accolades seemed to inflate his ego gradually. One evening during dinner, while I was discussing a new contract at work, my father interjected. Michelle, how long do you plan to keep doing that kind of job? My mother chimed in. Right. Kevin's classmate might introduce him to a medical office job. It's much better than cleaning. My heart froze at my mother's dismissive reference to my job as just cleaning. As Kevin's performance in medical school became known for its excellence, our parents' attitudes escalated further. They began boasting to our neighbors and at the hospital during his internships. Our son is so well regarded by the doctors. He might stay on at the university hospital. My mother's voice would rise with each story. During the end-of-year cleaning, as I tried to teach some professional cleaning tips, my mother looked at me with a hesitant expression. Michelle, it seems this kind of job suits you. My father even began planning his retirement, banking on Kevin's future success. Once Kevin becomes a doctor, we won't have to worry about our old age. Working at a big hospital, he'll easily make over $200,000 a year, he speculated. Conversations at home gradually revolved solely around Kevin. I felt as if my existence was fading into the background. At family gatherings, when mother started avoiding topics about my work. Michelle is, well, she's managing, she would say quickly, followed by, but Kevin. One day, at a neighborhood Christmas party, a decisive moment came. Your son is in medical school. That's really impressive, a neighbor commented. My mother responded proudly, yes, perhaps it's a result of our upbringing. We've inspired him to pursue a dream in healthcare. I was shocked. At that moment, it seemed my daily efforts to pay his tuition had been erased from my parents' memory. My decision to leave home stemmed from these experiences. Keeping a reasonable distance, I managed to maintain a relationship with my family. However, a significant event soon shattered our family dynamic. It began in the autumn of Kevin's senior year in medical school. Kevin started dating a fellow medical student, Tiffany. They met during an internship at the university hospital. She was talented and beloved by everyone. Kevin was instantly smitten. Tiffany is the only daughter of a family that runs one of the top general hospitals in New York. Kevin's voice over the phone held a note of pride. It turned out her father was the director of a general hospital. That's amazing, but I'd like to know more about her. Can you introduce me sometime? Yeah, sure. But it's exam period now, so maybe later. This exchange was repeated many times. Even after a year of dating, I had yet to meet Tiffany. At first, I didn't mind. Medical school is busy, and I was busy with work too. But a sense of discomfort lingered. One day, on my way home from work, I accidentally saw Kevin and Tiffany in front of a high-end restaurant, chatting happily. Just as I was about to call out to them, I saw Kevin's expression darken. He hurriedly ushered Tiffany inside the restaurant, pretending not to notice me. At that moment, I couldn't understand why my brother was avoiding me. Then that call came. Michelle, about this year's Christmas party. My mother's voice carried an unusual weight. Maybe it's better if you don't come this year. I was taken aback for a moment, doubting what I had just heard. Our family's Christmas party was a never-interrupted tradition. One I had always attended no matter how busy I was, even when I started my company or during delicate times in our family relationships. Since childhood, this party had been a cherished memory filled with my mother's homemade cakes, my father dressed as Santa Claus, and exchanging handmade gifts with Kevin. It was a precious time to affirm our family bonds. What do you mean? Well, Kevin is bringing Tiffany, and her parents will be coming too. My mother's words were hesitant, as if hiding something. That moment brought back memories of the past, the night I stayed up caring for Kevin, when he had a fever in elementary school, and the days I encouraged him during his middle school entrance exams. Those memories now felt like a distant past. The truth came directly from Tiffany herself. In fact, I had already met her a few months back. It was a fateful encounter on the day of a cleaning service bid at the General Hospital. After finishing a presentation with other contractors, I was checking documents for the next project in the hallway when a hurried woman nearly bumped into me. "Oh, I'm sorry," said the young woman in a lab coat, apologizing deeply. While thinking she looked familiar, I glanced at her name tag. It read Tiffany Owen. Realizing she was Kevin's girlfriend, I couldn't help but speak up. "Are you Kevin's?" She looked surprised. "Yes, but I'm Michelle, Kevin's sister." Tiffany appeared momentarily perplexed, but quickly smiled warmly. "Oh, I've heard a lot about you from Kevin, but he never showed me a photo." Our conversation naturally flowed, and before I knew it, we were deeply engaged in discussion. Tiffany was an intelligent and kind woman. I could see why Kevin was smitten. "Could we keep this between us?" Tiffany suggested. "I think it would surprise him. He would be so shocked when we reveal that we've become good friends." I thought it sounded fun and agreed to keep our meeting a secret. However, looking back, perhaps Tiffany wanted to keep it secret out of consideration for me. We occasionally met for coffee after that. Then, the day after my mother called about the Christmas party, Tiffany contacted me. "Michelle, there's something I need to talk to you about." Her voice trembled. We met at our usual cafe. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. "Michelle, I can't stand it anymore," she said, her voice shaking. "About the Christmas party. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think you have the right to know." Tiffany took a deep breath and began to speak. She had accidentally overheard a conversation between Kevin and my mother. She heard them saying, "Tiffany's family shouldn't find out that his sister is a janitor." That phrase struck me like a sharp blade. If they find out about Michelle being a janitor, Tiffany's parents might not accept our relationship, and it could even affect my future career prospects. I felt as if my 24-year bond with my brother crumbled in an instant. Kevin had proposed excluding me from family gatherings, seeing me as an obstacle to his future. When I heard these words, something quietly but surely broke inside me. More shocking was my parents' reaction. "Don't worry. Michelle will understand. Considering your future, the world of medicine is really special." They seemed to sympathize with Kevin's reasoning as if my feelings as a daughter were less important than maintaining a social facade for my brother. Since childhood, I had lived with the phrase, "because you're the big sister," and sacrificing for my brother had seemed natural. But now, that natural felt profoundly unstable. Tiffany continued, her voice heavy with emotion. Actually, I've kept it a secret from Kevin for a long time, but my mother has been a janitor at a hospital for over 20 years. She met my father there, and they married. But she continued to work even after marriage. She worked with pride. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. My mother always said, cleaning is an important job that protects people's lives. Deep gratitude for her mother shone in Tiffany's eyes. I pretended I didn't hear their conversation and said at the Christmas party, "I'd like to meet your sister." Then Kevin. He called the cleaning job embarrassing and referred to me as just a janitor. Tiffany's tears spilled over as she spoke. I can't believe them anymore. People who think of my mother's job in such a way, she said, looking down, trembling. That night, I stayed late at the office, lost in thought. In front of me, my computer screen displayed the payment history for Kevin's tuition fees, amounting to over $100,000 over 4 years. I had covered his day-to-day expenses and the shortfall in his tuition by taking out loans, on top of my own contributions. It was the crystallization of my sweat and tears. The nightscape visible from the office windows seemed lonelier than usual. A janitor's sister. The phrase echoed in my mind like a haunting refrain. I am proud of my job. I support people's lives and maintain the environment. It is by no means a job to be ashamed of. In days of sleeplessness filled first with anger, then with sadness, I came to a decision. The next day, I received a brief message from Tiffany. I've decided to break up with Kevin. I cannot be with someone who dismisses my mother's life like that. Michelle, thank you for everything. Perhaps, deep down, I had sensed this outcome, but I hadn't expected it to come so soon. That night, I made a difficult decision. I stopped paying Kevin's tuition fees. A few days later, a notice of unpaid tuition arrived at the university for Kevin. Confused and angry calls came from both my parents and Kevin. What is this? Didn't you promise to pay for the tuition fees? My mother's voice was frantic. Michelle, what happened? Kevin's future depends on this. My mother cried, and my father yelled at me. But my resolve was firm. If having a janitor for a sister is embarrassing, then you don't need assistance from me. I responded calmly. Let Kevin find his own path. It will surely be a good experience for him. Kevin, in a panic, called me. Michelle, please pay the tuition fee. Why? I asked calmly. Am I not just a shameful janitor? That's not it. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Kevin, I said quietly, you are ashamed of my job, of my existence, yet you still want to accept my money. Our parents called every relative, but no one offered to help Kevin. Ever since he had entered medical school, our parents' haughty attitude had exhausted our relatives' patience. Eventually, Kevin decided to apply for a scholarship and started a part-time job. A month later, Kevin visited my workplace. He had lost a lot of weight. Michelle, I'm truly sorry, he said, apologizing deeply. I've applied for a scholarship and started a part-time job. I'm going to continue my studies on my own. His voice lacked its former arrogance. The situation with Tiffany made me realize. She told me how important and honorable cleaning work is. How wonderful the job you do is. Someone who doesn't understand that shouldn't be a doctor. I listened silently to his words. Your company. It's really impressive. I didn't realize it before. I'm truly sorry. Entering medical school made me think I was better than others. His eyes surveyed my office. There's nothing to be ashamed of anymore. Rather, I'm proud. Seeing the smiles of the people working at your company made me understand. I spoke after a moment's thought. From now on, you stand on your own. But if you're really in trouble, you can come to me. Kevin nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you. but I'll try to do it on my own as much as I can. I think that's how I can apologize to you." Months passed, and Kevin truly changed. He worked part-time at a local clinic on weekends and as a tutor on weekday evenings. Kevin began to visit sometimes, talking about his experiences in medical school and his future dreams. "I want to open a clinic in the community one day, not one for the wealthy, but a place where everyone can feel secure." His eyes no longer held vanity or pretense but a firm resolve. From time to time, my mother called. "Michelle, I'm really sorry for trampling over your feelings," her voice laden with deep regret. My father sent a letter. "Michelle, my daughter, I am proud of your strength. We were wrong. If you can forgive us, let's be a family again." I've put off responding. I need time. But I believe that one day we can come together as a family again. A year later, Kevin started an internship at a local clinic, which, incidentally, my company was contracted to clean. "Doctor, Kevin really understands the patient's feelings," a nurse commented one day. Kevin chatted amiably with the janitors and became a doctor who empathized with his patients' anxieties. Now, our sibling bond might be stronger than before, not based on ideals or pretenses, but on a reality where we understand each other. And Kevin came to understand the true value of cleaning work. It's not just cleaning. It's a job that proudly supports people's health and peace of mind. I'm Vanessa, and I'm 30 years old. Since I was a young child, I always enjoyed drawing. I would frequently be seen with a sketchbook in hand, painstakingly documenting the scenery and the reactions of those around me, all while sitting in a peaceful nook of a charming town. I decided to focus on fine arts during my time in college, and once I graduated, I actively looked for chances to exhibit my work. Even with my best efforts, it was difficult to make a living as a professional painter. When I met Jonathan, my life underwent a dramatic and constructive change. Soon after I graduated, we got together. At the time, Jonathan worked on a construction site. His strong, tanned body, drenched from carrying logs, looked like it belonged in a movie. He'd offered, "Need a hand," with a kind, hospitable smile that won my heart right away. Jonathan owned his own construction business in addition to being a talented carpenter. With great pride, he frequently declared, "Creating safe places for people to reside is my profession." He was passionate about his work and committed to building safe, secure houses for families. I found great resonance in this vow, and my love for him grew stronger as we spent more time together. Additionally, he expressed his admiration for my artistic pursuits by frequently stating, "Your paintings possess the remarkable ability to touch people's hearts." We made the decision to get married after years of a passionate relationship. With Jonathan's constant encouragement, I started pursuing my goal of being an independent painter. This prompted me to bravely quit my work and devote myself entirely to my art, in spite of the natural fears that accompany such a big shift. There were several obstacles in the early stages of my new career. I tried to sell my artwork by going around to different galleries and constantly promoting it online, but it looked like success was coming slowly. Jonathan and Tiffany, my best university friend, were invaluable sources of support during these trying times. Tiffany, a marketing professional, thought highly of my work and gave me insightful counsel, saying, "You should focus on building a stronger brand image for greater recognition." Her astute advice on social media marketing tactics gradually started to increase awareness of my artwork. When a renowned art collector was intrigued by my work and offered me the opportunity to have a solo exhibition, this increased awareness ultimately resulted in a life-altering opportunity. His support enabled me to land a position in a prestigious gallery, thus increasing my visibility in the art world. Not everyone, particularly my sister Samantha, seemed happy with my success as my professional career took off. Samantha had always exhibited a competitive streak, comparing everything from academic achievements to hobbies, and even our circle of friends throughout our childhood. As a result, as adults, Samantha pursued a different kind of success. After college, she married William, a doctor, and enjoyed a comfortable life as a housewife, equating success with financial stability and a luxurious lifestyle. It seemed likely that my emerging success did not sit well with her. Initially, her comments were subtly disparaging. "Do painters really make that much money?" she would ask. "Well, at least you have Jonathan to support you. Aren't our trends rather fleeting? What will you do if people suddenly lose interest in your work?" Initially, I took these comments lightly, but over time, Samantha's true feelings became increasingly apparent as her behavior shifted towards more direct expressions of disdain. Then, an extraordinary and completely unexpected incident unfolded. While I was involved in the preparations for my upcoming exhibition, a perplexing and sudden phone call came through from the gallery. "Is there a need to revisit the contract?" The instant I received that call, I found myself completely dumbstruck, at a total loss for words. The person representing the gallery spoke in vague terms, hinting at potential problems by saying, "We've been informed that there could be some issues concerning your artwork." This left me bewildered, and I urgently requested further clarification. "Issues? What kind of issues?" "Yes, there has been a mention by one of the collectors that your works might be subject to plagiarism." Plagiarism? This accusation was entirely unprecedented for me, as my artistic integrity had always ensured that I created solely original pieces. Who would make such an accusation? "Well, that's a bit complicated," the representative replied, avoiding a direct answer. Driven by this puzzling accusation, I decided to conduct my own investigation into these bizarre claims. It was then that I uncovered the unsettling truth: Samantha had been covertly orchestrating this scenario. She had been deceitfully contacting my clientele, spreading false accusations, and suggesting that my artworks might be plagiarized. I felt a wave of anger coursing through me. Nevertheless, I made the conscious decision to momentarily set aside my fury and respond with a level-headed approach to safeguard my professional relationship with the gallery. That evening, I disclosed every detail to Jonathan. He listened intently and then posed a significant question. "What's your plan?" The idea of my career being tarnished by Samantha's falsehoods was unbearable. "I am innocent," I declared. Jonathan showed his support with a nod and said, "I'll assist as well. Recently, I completed a significant project for a client who has a keen interest in art. I will introduce your work to him." This suggestion caught me off guard. It appeared that Jonathan could potentially leverage his extensive network as the president of his company to secure new clients for my artwork. I also sought advice from my closest confidant, Tiffany. "Samantha was behind this, wasn't she?" "That's terrible," she remarked, barely concealing her frustration. "But don't fret. I'll utilize my influence on social media to authenticate the originality of your artworks." Tiffany, a seasoned marketing expert, promptly crafted posts that affirmed the originality of my creations and arranged for these to be disseminated through her professional contacts within the art industry. Shortly thereafter, a new client introduced by Jonathan expressed a profound appreciation for my work. "Your art is exceptional. It radiates a level of creativity I've seldom encountered." Hearing such affirmations, I was moved to the point of tears. Thanks to Tiffany, my artwork began receiving broader recognition and support on social media platforms, substantially boosting my professional reputation. Remarkably, even the gallery that had initially harbored doubts about my work conceded their mistake and opted to renew our contract, admitting, "Upon closer examination, we found absolutely no issues with your artwork." I had successfully navigated through Samantha's underhanded sabotage and emerged with even greater support than before. Time passed, and a family gathering was on the horizon. I chose to attend with minimal fanfare, yet Samantha appeared visibly uncomfortable. "Vanessa, it seems you've been quite occupied lately." "Indeed. Thankfully, I have managed to secure several additional contracts, and the exhibition is proceeding exactly as planned." Samantha's expression momentarily tightened, a clear indication that she realized her attempts to undermine me had not succeeded. "Good for you," she finally managed to muster, though her smile failed to reach her eyes, revealing her true feelings. Yet the situation was far from resolved. In a desperate attempt to present a facade of success, Samantha decided to boast. "Listen, everyone," she called out with forced excitement. "William has just been promoted to partner at the hospital. This will certainly ensure even greater stability for our family life." Her announcement was met with immediate applause and congratulatory remarks for the family. A stable career is truly invaluable. "I personally could never cope with a profession where the future is always uncertain," Samantha added, trying to contrast her supposed stability with the unpredictability of artistic careers. Although her comments were meant to provoke me, I chose to maintain my composure and not let her see that her words affected me. She then smugly smiled, showcasing her expensive brand name bag prominently on the table. "I decided to treat myself a bit," she declared, ostentatiously displaying her recently acquired luxurious jewelry and handbag. However, Jonathan and I were privy to the reality behind Samantha's display of opulence. Beneath her confident smile lay a subtle hint of panic. In truth, William had not received the promotion she boasted about. This information had come to me through my closest friend, Tiffany, whose boyfriend, Howard, worked closely with William and had shared these details about his ongoing struggles. William's performance at the hospital had not seen the anticipated improvement and had unfortunately plateaued. The financial boost that Samantha had eagerly anticipated had failed to materialize, leading to their current predicament, where maintaining their lavish lifestyle was putting immense strain on their finances. In response to this, Samantha had begun to behave even more extravagantly than usual in an effort to convince everyone around her of her unbroken string of successes. But such facades are often fragile, and it was only a matter of time before hers would inevitably collapse. Recently, their home had suffered extensive damage due to a severe, unanticipated hurricane. The storm had shattered windows, ripped off parts of the roof, and uprooted several trees in their garden, leaving their property in a state of ruin. That morning, as they surveyed the extensive damage, they found themselves at a loss for words, overwhelmed by the sudden devastation. Faced with the daunting cost of repairs, Samantha voiced her concern. "Hiring professional help will be quite expensive. Unfortunately, we really can't afford that at the moment. But the house is significantly damaged. What are we going to do about it?" William asked, his worry evident in his tone. "We'll have to figure something out," Samantha replied with reluctant resolve. "Maybe we could ask Jonathan for help." "I'd rather not ask him," Samantha answered quickly, albeit with slight surprise. "But he's family, and it might cost us less, right?" William continued. Samantha had been adamant about not wanting to rely on Jonathan for assistance. "I just don't want to depend on him," she stated firmly, digging in her heels. However, given the exorbitant costs associated with professional repair services, she found herself without many options. After considerable thought and facing the reality of their financial limitations, Samantha reluctantly conceded that she had no alternative but to request Jonathan's help. Jonathan arrived at their residence that same afternoon, donned in his customary work clothes, and immediately began to efficiently set up his assortment of tools. Throughout the repair process, Samantha observed him intently, seemingly searching for any fault in his methods to point out. However, Jonathan addressed every potential issue with a serene demeanor and meticulous attention to detail. As he proceeded with the necessary repairs, he replaced the damaged roof tiles and then swiftly installed new windows, achieving an impeccable finish. A few days after Jonathan had completed all the necessary repairs, William could not help but express his astonishment at the high quality of the craftsmanship. The house appeared completely revitalized, almost as if it were brand new. Surprisingly, the dramatic transformation of their home quickly became a popular topic of discussion at the hospital where William worked. His colleagues eagerly commented on the renovations, and soon the makeover of his house was the predominant subject of conversation in the staff room during their breaks. When he casually mentioned that Jonathan was responsible for the repairs, one of the hospital staff members excitedly shared, "I, too, had Jonathan work on my house recently. and he did an absolutely fantastic job. Another colleague joined in the conversation, exclaiming, "Really? Jonathan worked on William's house as well. No wonder it's undergone such an incredible transformation. Is Jonathan really that talented? Perhaps I should consider hiring him for some work on my own house too." As these discussions unfolded, questions and praises for Jonathan's skills ricocheted around the room, and before long, his craftsmanship was the highlight of discussions at the hospital. Not only was William's house a talking point, but Jonathan's reliability and skill also became well known among the hospital staff. That following weekend, we all convened at their beautifully restored home. Jonathan's exceptional carpentry skills were evident in every repaired corner of the house, and all the previously compromised areas had been thoroughly restored. Despite the joyful atmosphere, Samantha appeared slightly irritable throughout the gathering. William was noticeably cheerful, openly sharing with everyone how his colleagues at the hospital had lavished praise on the renovations. Everyone was quite envious. They repeatedly inquired about which contractor I had hired. "Jonathan, I can't thank you enough." William expressed his gratitude. Jonathan simply nodded and responded with a smile. "I'm delighted that you are pleased with the work. A home truly forms the foundation of one's life." Then Samantha, unable to hide her surprise at the accolades Jonathan was receiving, interjected with a hint of sarcasm. "Wow, I had no idea he was held in such high regard." Indeed, Jonathan possessed remarkable skills, and I was genuinely pleased to see that his reputation was starting to get the recognition it deserved. I lightly shrugged and casually mentioned, "Jonathan's company is quite well known. They take on significant projects as well." Samantha looked at me, her expression one of surprise. "Jonathan's company?" she asked, looking confused, her gaze shifting back and forth between me and Jonathan. "Yes, Jonathan's company," I affirmed with a reassuring smile. "Wait, Jonathan isn't just a carpenter." "Just a carpenter." Jonathan chuckled lightly at the question. "Well, yes, I am a carpenter, but that's not all there is to it." Samantha's confusion only seemed to deepen. "What do you mean? I always thought you were just covered in sawdust from the job site." That's because I'm actively on site. Our company handles everything from residential remodels to major commercial construction projects. I prefer not to be a president who is detached from the actual work, so I still actively participate in the field," Jonathan elaborated. "President?" Samantha's voice almost cracked in disbelief. "Yes. I've been running the company for about 10 years now. We've expanded quite a bit, and it keeps me quite busy," Jonathan explained nonchalantly, though his words clearly made Samantha feel even more cornered. I discreetly observed Samantha's reaction. Her eyes widened, seemingly unable to grasp the full extent of the information. "So you guys are doing quite well financially?" Samantha inquired, attempting to maintain her composure, yet her voice slightly trembled. "Thankfully, yes," Jonathan replied modestly, shrugging. "But why haven't you mentioned this before?" Samantha asked, her brow furrowing in suspicion. "It's not that I was hiding it. I simply never spoke of it because no one had asked," Jonathan responded with a light laugh, but this seemed to irritate Samantha further. She crossed her arms and let out a snort. "If you're the president of a company, you should be more forthcoming and boast about it with confidence." Jonathan simply shrugged again. "I'm not in it for bragging. What truly matters is the trust and the integrity of the work we do." Samantha momentarily lost her words, but then seemed to suddenly remember something and brighten up, as if to challenge the conversation. "Well, speaking of which, I'm actually pregnant." The room momentarily descended into silence. "What?" I asked, staring at Samantha in disbelief. "Really?" I continued, my voice filled with surprise. Our parents' eyes widened significantly as they processed the news. Samantha, looking quite pleased with herself, smiled broadly. "Yes, it's still very early, but I suppose it explains why I've been feeling unusually fatigued recently," she explained. Taken aback, I managed to muster a response. Congratulations. Samantha's face bore a smug expression. Right. This will surely add even more joy and vibrancy to our family, she remarked confidently. At that moment, the earlier tension seemed to dissipate, replaced by a new subject that brought with it a mix of emotions. Our parents responded with joyous exclamations and beaming smiles. That's wonderful news. Feeling a surge of pride, Samantha then shared additional news. That's precisely why William and I decided to invest in a vacation home. She elaborated with evident pride. With the arrival of the baby, we certainly need a peaceful retreat, don't you think? We've thought about a place that the whole family can enjoy. Our parents initially appeared taken aback by the announcement, but quickly transitioned to expressions of delight. However, William's face showed signs of strain, and Samantha, noticing his troubled look, pressed on with renewed confidence. Jonathan, caught slightly off guard, inquired, "That sounds quite impressive. Where is the property located?" Samantha's sense of pride visibly swelled as she responded, "It's a luxurious villa situated near the lake. It's exceptionally spacious and boasts a very stylish design," she boasted proudly. Upon hearing this, our parents once again collectively voiced their admiration, echoing, "That's incredible." As Jonathan and I made our way home after the dinner, I began to discuss the day's revelations with him. "Do you really believe Samantha's story about the villa? The area she mentioned near the lake is renowned for its luxurious properties. Considering her recent financial difficulties, it seems quite improbable that she could afford such an extravagantly priced property." Jonathan drove quietly for a bit before responding. "Actually, the villa Samantha referred to might be the very one that was recently included on the bank's foreclosure list." His words stunned me into silence, and even Jonathan momentarily averted his gaze, clearly uncomfortable with the implications. "A foreclosure list? Really?" I queried, unable to hide my shock. "Yes, I am quite certain. I've also heard some discussions about that property potentially being auctioned off by the bank." At that instant, I felt certain of my suspicions. Samantha's narrative was nothing more than a facade. Upon arriving home, I wasted no time in calling William. The phone rang briefly before he picked up. "Hello, William. I need to clarify something," I began, my voice laden with concern. "The villa Samantha mentioned, I heard it was on a recent foreclosure list. Is it true that you actually purchased it?" A heavy silence fell before William responded. "Yes, it's true. We did attempt to purchase a villa." My heart skipped a beat. I never imagined that Samantha would tell such a big lie. But why is it facing foreclosure? William sighed before continuing. "We initially thought everything would proceed smoothly. However, the financial obligations became too challenging over time, and ultimately, we couldn't keep up with the payments. As a result, we failed to secure the villa." Hearing this, I inadvertently gasped, shocked by the revelation. "Does Samantha know about this situation?" "I have informed her, but she has chosen not to accept the reality and instead has misrepresented the truth to maintain appearances." William's tone conveyed deep regret, a sentiment that could no longer be concealed. Despite Samantha's attempts to project an image of affluence, the reality remained starkly different. This news left me with mixed feelings. "Thank you for telling me, William. It's important that you and Samantha discuss this honestly and work through it together." I softly spoke these words before ending the call. William, with a subdued voice, uttered a quiet apology and ended the call. Afterward, I shared the details with Jonathan. I explained to him that the villa Samantha mentioned was actually on the brink of foreclosure. They were unable to manage the financial commitments and ultimately lost the property. Jonathan responded with a soft murmur. I had suspected as much. His expression turned to one of concern. "I wonder how William and Samantha are going to cope with this. If their relationship starts to unravel under these pressures, it might be beyond repair." His words echoed a deep worry for their well-being. Hearing him express such concern also caused a tightness in my chest, reflecting my own apprehensions. Despite my awareness of Samantha's often superficial and pretentious behavior, I held on to a hope that they might still find a path to genuine happiness. I sincerely wish for Samantha to embrace change, I remarked quietly, reflecting on her situation. She needs to adopt a more truthful approach and gather the courage to face reality. However, any change has to come from her desire to do so. Otherwise, all our discussions are futile. Jonathan nodded in agreement and added, "Indeed, I hope that one day Samantha will be able to confront her true self." We then sat together in silence, each lost in thoughts about the future, hoping for a day when Samantha might find her way. But the reality of their situation was far from simple. Samantha persisted in her ostentatious lifestyle, continually purchasing luxury goods in an effort to maintain an appearance of wealth far beyond her means. Over time, William became increasingly weary of this unsustainable way of living, and his emotional connection with Samantha began to wane. Engulfed by her own vanity, Samantha remained in denial about their real circumstances, which were continually exacerbated by accumulating debts and lies. The ongoing disputes and persistent dishonesty eventually drove William to make the difficult decision to leave. Shortly after, Samantha experienced a miscarriage, which was undoubtedly precipitated by the immense stress and physical strain she was under this loss, compounded by William's leaving, which plunged her into a deep state of mourning. It was at this point that Samantha truly comprehended the heavy cost of her previous lifestyle choices. The once glamorous life she had curated for herself disintegrated, leaving her burdened with significant debt and no sustainable means of support. As someone who had primarily been a housewife, Samantha found herself lacking the necessary skills and experience to secure stable employment. She made several attempts to find work, but her efforts were short-lived, and she quickly resigned from several positions. The facade that had once served to protect her now became a heavy chain that restricted her. Unable to rely on her parents and feeling increasingly isolated and anxious, she struggled to find a way forward. A neighbor once remarked to me, "In the end, everything built on lies is destined to collapse." I pondered this statement with a calm demeanor. Jonathan and I often discussed how the foundations of genuine relationships and earnest effort, rather than wealth or possessions, are the true measures of value. These principles, although they may require more time and may not always be glamorous, ultimately lead to meaningful success. One should focus on being true to oneself rather than how others might perceive us, Jonathan shared with me one evening, a sentiment that continues to resonate deeply with me. He has always remained grounded, never allowing superficial matters to sway him, and has consistently approached his work with utmost sincerity. This genuine approach not only endeared him to those around him, but also built a level of trust that has propelled him to considerable achievements within the construction industry. He has undertaken numerous projects, each underpinned by his technical prowess and efficiency, garnering several industry accolades. Particularly noteworthy was his role in a major urban redevelopment project, which not only received extensive media coverage but also solidified his reputation in the construction sector. He has always placed high value on the trust he has developed with his clients, which has ultimately positioned him at the pinnacle of his profession. Parallel to his success, I have pursued my passion for painting, gradually establishing myself in the art world. After years of dedication, my artwork, recognized for its unique use of abstract color and emotional expression, has resonated with many, attracting attention from art fairs and collectors globally. This has led to several opportunities to exhibit internationally. This journey of artistic expression has been immensely fulfilling, allowing me to share my worldview through my paintings. Together, we have celebrated our individual successes, supporting each other's growth and achievements. The trust and effort we have incrementally built over the years have undoubtedly culminated in the success we enjoy today, a testament to our shared belief in the importance of perseverance and building lasting relationships. Our achievements are not the result of sudden fortune, but are the fruits of long-term dedication. We remain committed to supporting each other and are confident in our ability to build an even greater future together.